Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Neil Freshman with the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, and I want to welcome you to this meeting to discuss the Westmoreland Street Corridor Study from Haycock Road to Chainbridge Road. Before we begin, I'd like to review a few guidelines so everyone can participate and get the most out of this session. First of all, please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube in a few days. We will post a link on the study webpage once it is up. We will have a presentation tonight and then a question and answer session. You're welcome to submit questions using the Q&A function in the WebEx window at any time. And we will do our best to get all questions while also ensuring that we get to all participants. To access the Q&A, hold the cursor over the screen and click on the Q&A button. If you do not see Q&A, click on the circle with 3 dots next to the chat button at the bottom right of the screen, then click on Q&A and make sure you select all panelists when using the Q&A feature. This meeting will run until 8:30. If we don't get to all questions, our team will follow up on any unanswered questions directly with attendees or by posting the questions and answers on the study webpage. As mentioned, please do not use the chat feature to submit your questions, as the Q&A function will send your question to all of the administrators in the session and will help us keep questions organized and in one place. If you are on the phone, please hold your questions to the end. We will have instructions on how to ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. I would now like to welcome Supervisor Faust to open this meeting with brief remarks. Supervisor Faust.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you everyone who is on the meeting. Welcome. I'm really pleased that we've gotten to this point. Westmoreland and pedestrian issues and bike issues have been, part of really my entire tenure since I got on the board 13 years ago. One of the first issues that came before me was concerns about pedestrian safety on Westmoreland. And, over the years, we've made several improvements, but, I recognize there's a lot more we need to do. There are very few roads like Westmoreland where you have, a high school, a middle school, a couple of elementary schools that use the pedestrian facilities, and a little league. So it's almost unique in that short area to have such a intense need for safe pedestrian access. So we have done several projects. We have a couple, I guess, we'll announce tonight that we're moving forward with it, and several others that we're studying. I just want to say thank you very much to the residents, and in particular the parents. In the beginning, it was really a parent-driven, school-focused effort to try to get some pedestrian safety measures for the corridor. So I want to thank everyone who's been involved in bringing these matters to our attention, and many, many great suggestions over the years that we are trying to implement. We also want to thank staff, both Fairfax County and VDOT, as we all live in our own little worlds, but they have to service a huge world of 1.2 million people and unlimited number of demands on their time and resources for such things as pedestrian projects like these. And they clearly have recognized that this is an important corridor that needs focus. And as a consequence, we got some good stuff going, and I just want to thank them for that. So without further ado, let's get to the main show. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Faust. Before we begin our presentation, I would like to thank Jane Edmondson from Supervisor Faust's office for helping to set up this meeting. We'll now begin our presentation. Vanessa Holt, a transportation engineer for the County Department of Transportation, will go through the presentation detailing the study, and then we will take questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Tonight, we're going to review some background information for the Westmoreland Street corridor. I'm going to go over the purpose of the study that we did. I'm also going to review community input that we have received to date from you all and through Supervisor Faust's office. And then we'll go over the recommendations that are coming out of the study. After that, we'll answer any questions that you have. So as a bit of background, in early 2020, working with VDOT, Fairfax County Department of Transportation, FCDOT, began an evaluation of the Westmoreland Street corridor from Haycock Road to Chainbridge Road. Supervisor Faust and his staff asked us to look at a number of items in response to the community input that they were receiving. Our goal was to improve safety and connectivity along this corridor. I do want to note that we worked with Supervisor Faust and his staff very closely throughout this effort. So tonight we're going to be presenting recommendations that have come out of our study. The recommendations are conceptual at this point, so many of them are going to require further design and funding to advance. And then after we go over the recommendations, we would like to answer your questions. And then we would also like to get some feedback from you regarding what we presented this evening. So a bit of history here. There have been several projects completed on Westmoreland Street to date. In 2012, pedestrian refuge islands were constructed at Bonham Court and Southridge Drive. Also in 2012, a rectangular rapid flashing beacon was installed at Old Chesterbrook Road. In 2013, the Westmoreland Street Walkway segment from Kirby Road to Haycock Road was constructed. Along with that came a right turn lane and the addition of some pedestrian signals at Haycock as well. In 2015, the intersection at Old Chesterbrook Road was realigned. And then earlier this year, VDOT completed repaving of Westmoreland Street. And along with their repaving project, they refreshed a lot of pavement markings and upgraded and added some signage per all of your requests. The last item I want to note, this is not quite complete, but construction of the Westmoreland bike lanes north of Rosemont Drive are anticipated to be complete in April of 2020. So as I said before, we began this study in response to community input about various locations along the corridor. Some of the things that were requested and items that we heard from you all, a traffic signal study for the intersection at Clearview Drive near McLean High School was requested, as well as an update to the speed study for the corridor. We also received a lot of feedback about pedestrian safety concerns and requests for curb extensions, additional pedestrian refuge islands. We were asked to evaluate existing crosswalk locations to see where we might be able to add new crosswalks or maybe some additional signage, potentially some additional RRFBs, those rectangular rapid flashing beacons. We also got requests for more simple items like refreshing crosswalk markings, installing no passing zone signs, adding additional school zone pavement markings. And we were also asked to evaluate Westmoreland Street's eligibility for the additional $200 fine for speeding signs that are part of FCDOT's RTAP program, the Residential Traffic Administration Program. So preliminary results here. Preliminary data collection results show that Westmoreland Street did qualify for the $200 fine for speeding signs on the southern end of the corridor between Kirby Road and Haycock Road. Since that segment does meet the qualification criteria, If the community decides that you all would like to move forward with a $200 fine for speeding signs, you can work with Supervisor Faust's office and you can take it forward to the next step. VDOT recommends, as a result of their speed study, maintaining the speed limit of 35 miles per hour on the entire corridor. This assessment was done and the conclusion was reached based on speed data, roadside development, and crash data.
Vanessa, this is Tom Foles, VDOT. Let me just say, part of the corridor is already posted at 25, so that would remain at 25. Okay, so the only part that would be 35 is north of Lemon Road. And that's already 5.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. VDOT also conducted a signal justification study in response to the request for a traffic signal at Kirby Drive. And their study does recommend a conventional traffic signal for the intersection at Old Chesterbrook Road and the intersection at Kirby Drive, those 2 T intersections. That recommendation is not currently funded. And then we did identify several locations for new crosswalk refuges and curb extensions. And 5 of those locations have been funded. And I'm going to give you some more details about those locations in the following slides. So the intersection at Hopewood Drive, the improvements at this intersection were selected as the first study recommendation to move forward with funding and implementation based on initial community feedback. I want to note that this improvement is being funded by Supervisor Faust using Dranesville District Walkway funds. The proposed recommendations, at this intersection include the construction of a pedestrian refuge island, the installation of a marked crosswalk, and construction of a new bus pad, as well as new ADA ramps. This project's currently in the design initiation phase, but it is funded, as I said, and will move forward to construction. Additionally, funding for a walkway project to construct an 8-foot shared use path on Westmoreland Street from Lemon Road to Kirby Road was included in the Transportation Priorities Plan update that was approved by the Board of Supervisors in December 2019. Additionally, as part of the study that we conducted for the Westmoreland Street corridor, we identified 4 additional intersection improvements that will be constructed with the walkway project. Those proposed improvements include additional pedestrian refuge islands, curb extensions, and other geometric improvements. And I'm going to get into some details about those on the next 2 slides. The planning level cost estimate for this entire project is $3.6 million. And we believe that this significant investment will really enhance pedestrian safety and connectivity along the segment of Westmoreland Street. So at Lemon Road, the concept that's shown on the left side of the screen here, we're proposing to relocate the existing crosswalk, add a pedestrian refuge island, I'll use my cursor to point that out, and install a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. Additionally, we're proposing curb extensions on both sides of the road to reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians. And then at Somerville Drive, the concept shown here on the right, we're proposing a new crosswalk and a pedestrian refuge island, as well as another curb extension to reduce crossing distance for pedestrians. At Poole Lane, shown on the left here, we are proposing to relocate the existing crosswalk and add a pedestrian refuge island, as well as curb extension to reduce pedestrian crossing distance. And then at Kirby Road, we are planning to reduce the corner radius here, which will slow cars down, install a pork chop island on the southwest corner of the intersection here, and that will reduce pedestrian crossing distances and enhance pedestrian safety, and also add pedestrian signals on the northwest and southwest corners. Along with that, we would relocate bus stops on both sides of the road to the far side of the intersection, which is safer. So as part of our corridor evaluation, we also identified future improvements for 8 additional intersections, which are listed here on the slide. These improvements are not currently funded, but the recommendations that we have for these locations are very similar to the other intersections that I have discussed this evening. And they include items like pedestrian refuge islands and curb extensions that enhance pedestrian safety. We are going to be publishing a project website and a community survey on that website within the next few days. The survey will be accessible via a link on the project website. And we're going to be asking for your community feedback in prioritizing these future projects. So at which time we do have funding, we'd really like to take your feedback into consideration to see which projects should rise to the top of the priorities. So these last few slides here contain aerial maps of the entire corridor study area, starting at Haycock Road and ending at Chain Bridge Road. They just present a summary of all of the recommendations that I've reviewed this evening, and then the items that we looked at each location. So I'll go through them fairly quickly. Here at Haycock Road, there were several items that VDOT was able to complete including installing in-school zone signs, relocating speed limit signs, and refreshing crosswalk markings and stop bars. Placid Street was one of the intersections we looked at, and we do have a future unfunded improvement here. We're proposing to add curb extensions to reduce the pedestrian crossing distance and then relocate bus stops at that location. Here at Hopewood Drive near Longfellow Middle School, this is one of our new funded project locations. We're proposing, as I went over before, to add a pedestrian refuge and add school pavement markings. I'm sorry, VDOT has already added school pavement markings and school zone signs to enhance the visibility of that school zone. So one of our FCDOT funded projects is, as I said before, the Westmoreland Street Walkway from Kirby Road to Lemon Road, and that is funded. So that starts here at Kirby Road. VDOT was able to refresh crosswalk markings and stop bars as part of their repaving, and also refresh the existing bicycle markings from Kirby all the way up to Somerville Drive. Additionally, as I talked about before, we're going to be able to accomplish some intersection improvements here. So this is a continuation of where the Westmoreland Street Walkway, the new walkway, would be constructed. Additionally, at Poole Lane, we're proposing to add another refuge island and curb extensions. VDOT was also able to refresh bicycle markings and crosswalk markings already with their repaving. More refreshing of crosswalk and pavement markings by VDOT here, and at our funded walkway project extends all the way up here to Lemon Road. On this figure, you can see Somerville Drive and Lemon Road, where we are proposing, and these projects are funded, to add refuge islands and curb extensions, and then a new RRFB at Lemon Road. We also looked at Van Fleet Drive, and one of our future projects is to add a refuge island, a curb extension, and relocate bus stops at that location as well. We also looked at Lumsden Street. Again, similar recommendations for the future, adding a refuge island and curb extensions to enhance pedestrian safety. Southridge Drive, there were crosswalk markings that were refreshed here. And then we are recommending for the future to add curb extensions at this location to reduce, there's already a pedestrian refuge island here. So we think that curb extensions, could enhance the pedestrian safety by reducing the crossing distances. At Ridgedale Court, VDOT was able to install one end of school zone sign as part of the comprehensive review of signing that they did along the corridor. They noticed a sign was missing here, so they installed that as well. At Bonham Court, the crosswalk markings were refreshed, and we're proposing, similar to Somerville, that we add curb extensions sometime in the future. At Rosemont Drive, school pavement markings, an end school zone sign were both added, and then crosswalk markings were refreshed. This is also the beginning of our project that will be complete in April for the Westmoreland Street bike lanes that start at Rosemont Drive and continue north. Additionally, at Rosemont, a future proposed project is to add a pedestrian refuge and curb extensions, as well as an RRFB. At the intersections of Old Chesterbrook Road and Kirby Drive, we reviewed earlier that VDOT conducted a signal justification report and does recommend a traditional signal at both of these two intersections in the future. And we also recommend adding a curb extension as a future project as well. As I noted before, I just want to remind everyone that we are publishing our project website and a community survey in the next few days. We'd really like to get more feedback in prioritizing the future projects that I outlined here tonight. There will also be an opportunity for you to leave additional comments in that survey. So the link for our project website is here. It's going to be updated with the survey within the next few days. And I'd really like to encourage you to fill it out, leave additional comments. I really value your comments, and it's very useful to us as we prioritize future projects. Thank you very much, and I think we're going to begin answering some questions now.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. As Vanessa mentioned, we're now going to open up the meeting to questions. In addition to those that spoke, we have representatives from the County DOT, Department of Transportation, Capital Project Section, and Design Divisions, along with staff from the Virginia Department of Transportation to answer questions about funded projects. I'll let panelists introduce themselves as they answer their first question. Once again, let me go through the procedures for question and answers. Please type your questions in the Q&A box. Do not use the chat. If you don't see the Q&A box, hold the cursor over the screen and click on the Q&A button. If you don't see it, click on the circle on the bottom right of the screen where there's 3 dots, and then click on the Q&A, and make sure you select all panelists when using the Q&A so we can see the question. If you are joining by phone, please push *3 to raise your hand to ask your question. When it's your turn, the moderator will call on you to ask your question, and when you are finished, please push *3 again to unraise your hand. With that, let's start with questions. Michael?
Great, thank you, Neil. And just to remind the panelists, I have muted you if you were not muted, so you will need to unmute yourself before you answer a question. Okay, so the first question is, good evening. My name is David Ashcroft. I was struck by a car while lawfully crossing Westmoreland Street in a crosswalk about a year ago. So David, thank you very much for attending tonight. We obviously are very sorry to hear that. We appreciate your comment. I think that really speaks to the importance of the study and the recommendations and the work that Supervisor Phelps has asked us to do. Next question is, what is being done to curb the greatly increased incidence of high rates of speeding, especially from Kirby to Haycock, where drivers seem to think the speed limit is higher than 25 miles per hour? It is very dangerous to try and cross the street. So I'll just chime in real quick. I know often speeding is an enforcement issue. We certainly can work with Supervisor Phelps' office, potentially follow up with the police. And I don't know if anyone on the panel has anything to add to that.
The only thing I would mention is that Residents should coordinate both with the supervisor's office and with the local police if you call the non-emergency number. And the police do have speed display boards, which they can put out on a temporary basis. As Michael mentioned, they also can do enforcement. Police have, talked to us about this in the past. They can only do enforcement at local places for a limited amount of time, but you certainly can request it for this location.
Yeah, this is Supervisor Frost. I would say I agree with that 100%, but I would suggest that you call our office and we'll take it from there and make sure that it gets coordinated with the police and so forth. We will bring this to their attention on Kirby to Haycock. And they're usually really good about sending people out for enforcement for a short period of time, but they don't have the resources to sit someone where we would like to sit them 24/7. So, if they're out there and they do their job and then the problem comes back, report it again. We're happy to, we're in constant communication with the police officers and happy to do that.
Thank you, Supervisor Fest. The next question. What is the timeline for the Poole Lane Barrier Island? Any chance for a flashing light for pedestrian crossing like the other ones on Westmoreland? It's very dangerous with KGRC/LL/Longfellow/KG/MHS crossing. It's blind due to the steep grade.
So as far as the timeline, I can hand it off to the project manager for that project in a minute to give a very general estimate of the timeline, because again, like I said, we're just in the design initiation for that project. As far as whether we could put an RFB here, I may ask Chris Wells to comment, but I know that initially our pedestrian safety engineer, when she evaluated all the locations on this corridor, there are certain criteria that have to be met. And I'm not sure if Poole met the criteria for an RFP, but I think we could certainly go back and take a look at that, especially given your additional comments here, people who are using this in passing every day. So I'll make a note of that, and I don't know if Chris Wells would like to add anything or.
I think you're correct that the initial assessment said that it was not a candidate for the rapid flash beacons, but I would note that the design of the intersection is going to greatly increase the visibility of pedestrians and pedestrians' visibility of cars by essentially taking away that extremely wide area on the west side and bulbing out the road that way. You'll have much more straight line sight distance up and down the road.
Thanks, Chris. As far as the timeline, Nagin and Michael, I know we had talked about this briefly. I know we don't have anything concrete as far as schedule, but do we have anything, any kind of estimate?
Good evening. My name is Nagin Askarzadeh. I'm one of the transportation planner with Capital Project section. As far as the timeline going, we're currently, as Vanessa already mentioned, at the design initiation, and it will take about 3 to 4 years for the design to be completed. And after that, we can start the construction.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for that question. All right, sorry. I think I was muted. So thank you all for those answers. So our next question is, Poole needs an RRFB more than Lemon Road. It's easy to see peds waiting to cross at Lemon. Due to the steep grade, it's not always possible to see peds at Poole. So thank you for the comment. I encourage you to take the survey and you can provide that feedback there. And also the survey will be asking folks for what they think the priorities are for the recommending improvements. Next question is, will there, someone want to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Chris's previous comment addresses that a little bit. Hopefully the proposed refuge island will increase, and the curb extensions will increase pedestrian visibility a little bit at Poole, but I'm going to make a note to go back and look at the RRP criteria again, since that's the second comment we've gotten.
Thank you. Next question. Will there be a refuge island in the middle of Broadway, Longfellow, and Hancock, in parentheses, Placid?
So bear with me here for a second. I'm going to pull up.
And no worries.
Okay, so I see in the question, sorry, I'm trying to read the question to make sure that I answer it fully.
On my screen, I'm watching.
I'm not sure if the question is asking about here at Longfellow Middle School, if they were talking about Placid Street, but I suppose I can answer both. Here at Hopewood Drive, it was one of our proposed funded recommendations that we're going to be adding a pedestrian refuge island, along with a marked crosswalk here to improve pedestrian visibility. And then if the question was about Placid Street, I do believe that we did recommend curb extensions at this location, and this would be a future unfunded project. So this will be one of those locations that's included in our community survey. So again, please respond to the survey and let us know that this is one of your highest priorities. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Next question. Please describe the movement of speed limit signs south of Kirby Road to Hancock.
This is Tom Foles at VDOT. You want me to take that one?
Sure, that'd be great.
Well, we did not study the section from Kirby Road to Haycock. That's already posted at 25 miles an hour. So we weren't really asked to look at making any changes to the speed limit there. But I think we could take a look and make sure that it is adequately signed for speed limit. I saw one of the upcoming questions, there was a suggestion to put a speed limit sign in front of the synagogue. So we can take a look at the placement of the speed limit signs on that section when we're looking at the rest of the corridor as far as where the new signs are going to go.
I think part of that question was related to the slide that I have on the screen right now as well. When the signing team, I think Tom at VDOT, looked at some of the things that they would be able to do to accomplish when repaving was done. I think there were some speed limit signs that just weren't placed in the proper place. They were within school zones, and I think we had gotten the comment that it was confusing to drivers. And so I think they were just relocated to make them less confusing.
Okay, well, we'll take another look at that and make sure that it's straightened out and adequate. Okay.
Great, thank you. Next question. What is the timeline for the funded projects? So I'll just real quick, as Vanessa mentioned, and we're really just starting. So my section's handing them off to our design section who will do the project management. So they're starting from scratch on a couple of those, like the walkway and then the improvements at Walkway. I don't know if any of the project managers or any of the TDD staff has ballpark ranges they might be able to share, realizing they haven't done a detailed schedule yet.
Hi, this is Jabron Abifidel with Fairfax County Department of Transportation Intercapital Projects Division. I'm working on the Hopewood crosswalk on Westmoreland Street. And I estimated that it would take approximately 2 to 3 years from design to full construction of that project, approximately. Again, this is in the initial phases of the project, so we still have to do a survey of the project area to really determine finite details to maybe reduce that schedule if possible.
Thanks, Gibran. Does anybody else have anything else to add in?
This is Jim Beal. I'm section chief with Transportation Design Division. We found that typically it takes at least 2 to 3 years, and really until you get into the design. That if there are utility relocations, if there are extensive right-of-way acquisitions that are needed, it can take longer than that. But from design to construction is 3 years is a good estimate.
Okay, thank you. And and as we get in to design, have a much better feel for all the elements involved. We can do a much better schedule. Next question. And real quick, just want to remind everyone, when you put a question in the Q&A, please make sure it's addressed to all panelists so we can all see them and it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. So please, if you've put one either directly to me or to a different panelist, please, if you could put that in for all panelists, that would be very helpful. Next question is, have you looked at adding a grass island along the entire length of Westmoreland Street instead of pedestrian islands?
That is not something that we looked at with this study. I would say that we were really trying to address the pedestrian safety concerns that we were receiving from you all. And so these pedestrian refuge islands and curb extensions are much more cost-effective ways of achieving the same level of pedestrian visibility and pedestrian safety. Additionally, when you put a grass median down the center of a roadway, obviously that would limit vehicular access in certain instances, but really the focus of what we tried to do with this evaluation was address those pedestrian safety concerns that we were hearing from so many of you. And so we feel that these pedestrian refuge islands that we are proposing at several locations accomplish that in a very cost-effective way.
Next question. Would the new signals be triggered only by cars? Question mark. Pedestrians? Question mark. There are significant traffic issues getting down Westmoreland during each evening rush hour. Worried signals will back things up more, but perhaps it will deter people from cutting through.
I'll take that one. The new signal will be triggered by cars on the side street, as well as pedestrians, as well as possibly, we haven't determined for certain at this point, but possibly by cars on Westmoreland that want to make a left turn. So, for example, in late at night or on weekends when there might not be as much traffic on the side streets and not as many pedestrians around, then Westmoreland would get the green light until such time as a vehicle comes in from either Clearview or Chesterfield. So as far as that impacting the ability to drive on Westmoreland, that's something that's inherent anytime a traffic signal is introduced on a road. That's something we have to look at and we have to seriously consider every time we make a decision to add a signal, is how is it going to affect the traffic that's passing through on the major road. In this case, I don't think it's going to be significant, perhaps except during the time when the school is the school starting and ending times, when the traffic on the side street is going to be the heaviest.
Okay, thank you. Next question. For the VDOT study, on signals to be placed at the intersections of Westmoreland Clearview and Westmoreland Old Chesterbrook. Please give the date of that study.
The date of the VDOT signal justification report was August 2020. So VDOT went back and looked at this location in response to community input. And so this study was just completed in August.
Thank you. Next question is, what is the estimated schedule for commencing and completing design and construction of the Westmoreland Street Walkway between Lemon Road and Poole Lane and between Poole Lane and Kirby Road? I believe is that the same one, right? That's what we just spoke to? Okay, great, thank you. Next question, what is the Drainsville Walkway Fund and how does the neighborhood gain access through the fund for needed improvements in pedestrian walkways? In my case, thinking about the very poor sidewalks along Haycock from Westmoreland to the metro entrance to Haycock. I don't know if Supervisor House wants to speak to that. I have muted you if you would like to speak.
Yeah, I'll speak to it. The Drainsville Walkway Fund is a modest amount of money that is generated via usually through proffers, like and as you probably realize, there hasn't been much development activity in McLean, so there hasn't been much revenue generated for the Walkway Fund. Most of what has been generated is committed to downtown McLean because that's where the projects were. And but we have some flexibility, and to the extent we had it, I think we pretty much used it up to get this one project funded. But it's something I constantly try to get money into. We had at one time, we put $100,000 in each supervisor's walkway fund. And I used 75,000 of that, I think, on Westmoreland for medians and other improvements. So it's it's something that it gives you a little bit of flexibility. But when I say a little bit, I emphasize little. So.
Thank you. Next one is a comment. There needs to be a southbound 25-mile-per-hour speed sign in front of the synagogue. So thank you. We'll note that. Next question is, please let me know if you have a similar study and project for Great Falls Street where children still risk their life to cross at Hutchinson and Great Falls. I don't believe there's been a study initiated there. Is anyone aware of anything?
I'm not aware of any studies of Great Falls. I know Jane Edmondson's on the line. Jane, are you aware of anything going on Great Falls Street?
No, I'm not. What I'm aware of, and Jim Beal obviously can speak to it, is we've just recently completed a significant sidewalk project all the way to the city of Falls Church, but no speed study.
Thank you. And just a reminder, there's a couple of people called in. You can hit *3 to raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. Our next question is,
Michael, I'd respond to what Jane just said. We did not conduct a speed study on Great Falls Street as part of the project.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Why didn't the study include the section of Westmoreland Drive from Haycock south to the county line? There are significant pedestrian and driver safety issues along this stretch due to speeding drivers in small hills, particularly around Roosevelt.
Well, I can add that obviously we'd like to study everything. The genesis of this particular corridor study were the significant number of resident complaints and concerns and emails regarding safety, particularly around the schools. And particularly McLean High School, where unfortunately there have been some accidents. So with the limited amount of funding, we sort of looked to where could we get the biggest bang from the buck, and we looked at the corridor where there were significant community interest in improvements and also significant pedestrian activity because of schools.
Thank you. Next question. Can a sidewalk be put going up Westmoreland in the stretch before the Redimere where the right sidewalk drops off? Thank you. So we can note that. Note that request. Would you be able to add a permanent speed display boards on Westmoreland?
Hey, go ahead, Vanessa.
So right now, FCDOT, we do not have any permanent speed display boards. We have worked with Fairfax County Police Department to coordinate a current program that they have where they place temporary pole-mounted speed display signs. And the reason that they place them temporarily is because they can rotate them to many locations, so there's a lot of use, but it allows them to collect data at locations that they think are problematic and really target the enforcement there. So you can call your local district station and request locations where you would like them to place the pole-mounted speed display signs. And then they will use them to collect speed data and then target enforcement as necessary. But right now, neither Fairfax County Police Department nor FCDOT have a program to install these signs on a permanent basis. A lot of the data points to the fact that, unfortunately, these types of signs become ineffective over time because people become desensitized to them. So that's why we like to rotate them around to different locations to really target that enforcement and get the best results.
I'd also like to say, I'm sure you can contact the Dranesville District Office and they will help you with the police to get this arranged on a temporary basis.
Great. Next question. Thank you for everything you've been able to do so far. As Supervisor Faust indicated, it has taken a long time to get these improvements. Is there a way to speed up this process in our area as we are between booming developments? I'll add real quick. We understand the priority. We will continue to work with Supervisor Faust to look for ways to get projects funded for the projects that are moving forward. I know our design division works very hard to complete them as fast as possible. And they certainly will be making every effort to expedite them as much as they can. And with that, I'll just throw it out to the panel if anyone has anything else to add about that. Okay, next question. Why didn't the study extend further south, i.e. Roosevelt or Gordon? Many kids walk to Haycott and Longfellow along from this area. I believe we kind of talked a little bit about the study limits before, but noted that there's obviously other issues along this corridor outside of the study limits. Next question. Perhaps this is not the best venue for this question, but given the increasing density in this corridor, both business, educational, and residential, is there any possibility of expanding capital bike share program to the Westmoreland corridor CBC? We can put in that request with our active transportation team. Chris, I know you're on the panel. Has there been any discussions in this area? Do you know if Falls Church is planning anything?
Yes, this is Chris Wells. We as staff agree that the McLean Central Business Center and the northern end of Westmoreland would be a good area to expand capital bike share. We currently have capital bike share at the McLean Metro Station. That's the nearest station to downtown, nearest capital bike share station to downtown McLean. So at the moment, we don't have funding to do that, but we do view that as an expansion. City of Falls Church has capital bike share. We are expanding our Merrifield capital bike share network to go east to Falls Churches. So McLean would be right off of those existing networks. And so, yes, the McLean CBC would be a good future location for capital bike share.
Great, thank you. This is exacerbated by mapping apps which direct people to our residential streets, which are narrow, black sidewalks, etc. That is a good comment. We do get that a lot. It is kind of a current reality we have. I will say the county is in several studies to improve capacity on Route 7, and including potential bus rapid transit system, high quality transit system, and your comment is noted. We have a problem of cars parking in front of our driveway located across from Temple. I almost had an accident in early November. I was backing slowly into driveway and car came over the hill and swerved to avoid me. Could we get towing and force signs?
Okay, so this is Neil. I don't think you could get towing, but if there are cars parked illegally, in other words, blocking your driveway or too close to your driveway, you can call the police non-emergency number. Generally, my understanding is the police are not doing residential parking enforcement unless they receive complaints. It's basically complaint based. So that's what I would suggest to do.
Thank you. Next one's a comment. Speed enforcement should include the stretch from Haycock south to the county line. So thank you about that. And as we noted, contact your local police department. Next one, going north on Westmoreland from Old Chesterbrook to Chainbridge. The right side of Westmoreland is culverts and unfriendly to cyclists. Has there been any thought to improving that section of Westmoreland to make it more bike and pedestrian friendly? Does anybody know if we've done anything up there?
This is Chris Wells. That's the same location that the earlier question was of the sidewalk ends heading up to the Church of the Redeemer. We did have many years ago a project to try and build that sidewalk there, but it turned out that the driveways, the front yards of everybody's property along there was too steep, and there wasn't enough room to be able to build a sidewalk and not totally damage everybody's property. So the solution to that would be the same solution to this current question about the cycling. We would need to actually rebuild the road, narrow the road, raise it up because there is that drop off there. And however, that would be a significant expensive project to rebuild half of Westmoreland, going all the way up that hill to make it a relatively flat roadway for cyclists and to get a sidewalk in there. But we do have that noted as a missing sidewalk.
Thanks, Chris. The next question's comment, seriously, 3 to 4 years, question mark. I was referring to timelines before. I think we've provided a little more clarification since then. Typically 2 to 3 years to get from design to construction. But like I said, if things go well, you don't need a lot of land rights or no land rights, no utilities. They'll try to move those forward as fast as they can. We've got about 5 minutes left. Just a reminder for those on the phone, *3 if you'd like to ask a question. We'll get to many as questions as we can in the last 5 minutes, and then we'll either post answers or respond back to those we don't get to. Next one is the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit sign immediately south of Kirby is difficult for drivers to see, and there is not another southbound 25-mile-per-hour sign until past Haycock Road. Is there a plan for adding an additional sign in between these two signs?
This is Tom Foles. We don't have a plan right now, but as I mentioned earlier, we're going to take a comprehensive look at all the speed limit signs, especially focusing on the section between Kirby and Haycock. And we will focus in on these suggestions as areas to look at.
Thanks. Next question. Slide 14 describes a relocation of 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs out of the school zone.
Michael, I think that was just a comment when we were having that discussion a few minutes ago. I think he was trying to articulate what he...
Okay, Got it. Thank you. Oh, and then there's thank you. Okay, sorry. All right. Please note, current speed limit sign between Kirby and Haycock is confusing. Believe the sign that says 25 miles per hour when light is flashing by schools implies that it's not, that it's higher, sorry, implies that it's higher when light is not flashing. So thank you, good comment, note that. Next question. So I posted 2 questions, Q&A tool, we sent to all. Okay. Okay, they should be there, let me look for those. We don't get to those, we'll get questions posted and respond back to you on those. A sidewalk from Lemon to Kirby was part of the 6-year plan approval in, I think, 2012. What is the current timeline? That is the project we talked about, that's currently funded. So we'll move on to the next one. Have you talked with the school about the new crossing at Longfellow? Longfellow has discouraged kids from crossing at that location because it is difficult to see people crossing with kiss and ride traffic coming in and out. But I know kids do it anyway. Anyone aware of any discussions with the school?
We as FCDOT staff did not have discussions with the school. However, this improvement was in response to a lot of community input asking for something to be done at this location. So that's certainly something that we can do as we move the project forward and design to listen to their concerns.
Thanks. Next question. Can a sidewalk be put going up Westmoreland in the stretch before the Redeemere where the right sidewalk drops off? We talked about that already. Given the timeline for projects and the boom of growth, would you consider dropping the speed limit on small neighborhood streets, which are a certain width, no sidewalks? The main goal to make those streets undesirable to mapping programs to 15 miles per hour, for example. I don't believe we can go below 25 on residential streets. Is that correct?
We would have to do a speed study for every one of those streets. So right now, under the Virginia law, speed limit on residential streets within the subdivisions is 25 miles an hour, unless VDOT does a study to show that it should be something other than that. So we typically, I don't know that we have any 15-mile-an-hour streets in Fairfax County. Then, so we would have to justify it with an engineering study, and I don't believe that would be possible. And also, I think the apps don't necessarily take the speed limit into account. They take the flow of traffic, the speed of traffic into account. So if people are violating the speed limit, that's what the app is going to look at rather than the posted speed limit.
Okay, thanks. So this will be our last question. We didn't get to all of them, but thank you all for the questions. And again, we'll follow up with the ones we did not get to tonight. Is there a possibility to do a speed assessment on Westmoreland between Haycock and Gordon? I think that would require, again, a speed study. I think we'll note that comment.
Right. Now, if it's already 25, though, I don't think we would be going any lower than 25.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've run out of time. So that was the last question. Neil, do you want to close us out?
Sure. So thank you all for coming to this meeting. Please note on the slide that location for survey and contact information. A recording of this meeting will be available on the study webpage in a few days. As Michael mentioned, any questions that we did not get to tonight will be responded to directly to participants or posted on the study webpage. Also, as Vanessa mentioned, we do want your feedback on the study, and there are several ways you can provide feedback. There will be a link to a survey. Actually, it's up already on the study webpage, and you'll be able to provide additional comments on the survey. You can call Vanessa Holt directly. The number is 703-877-5600 and ask for Vanessa. Or you can mail comments to Fairfax County Department of Transportation. We would ask that on the envelope you put attention Westmoreland Corridor Study so it gets routed to the right location. And the address is 4050 Legato Road, Suite 400, Fairfax, Virginia 22033. The address is also on that slide. Thank you all for your, I just got a note that the survey will be up tomorrow morning. It is not up yet, so it should be up tomorrow morning. So thank you all for your participation. Thank you for coming to the meeting.